Alright, we are recording. Let me just clear out the old files I don't need. Alright. Load layers I would say continue in Just Cause 2. And I have things to talk about. This has also been a weird week for me. Good week though. Good week. But weird week, so yeah, just saying. So let me see, I got on here the RTX 3090 Ti was released. Saw something concerning the Intel Foundry services, which I don't know if I talked about it much last week. The Intel Arc mobile discrete GPUs. One thing that's kind of interesting. Well, a couple things that are kind of interesting. So why don't I start with those? Where do I want to go? I always grab the wrong thing. It's been the kind of week I don't really feel like doing those. Let's try to clear that. So yeah, the two kind of interesting things. One is E3 2022 has been canceled, both like in person and I go. I want to get to the helicopter. Let's not see. Oh, I think it's over. Yep, there it is. Yeah, both the in-person and the digital. Which the digital also being canceled is a little interesting. But I mean, in a way though, is it really that big a deal? I mean, don't get me wrong, I want E3 to come back. There's reasons to have a large conference like E3, but at the same time, there's also plenty of companies that are just doing their own thing. But yeah, having a large conference is nice because it's very convenient. That way, you know, all the people that are able to go can just go there. You know, like any convention, you know, bring it all together so you're not having to go to 5 different places, potentially on 5 consecutive weekends. There are people that hate when that happens. But it also, I could see E3 being something that, like, some indies might have an easier time going to that than obviously setting up their own. There are PAXs, though, that is that they could get to, but you know, E3 has had a purpose in the past, and I hope that they manage to figure out how to rekindle that, how to get that back, but it also might not happen. I mean, the new normal, as some people describe it, could involve a lot of things not happening. Things that were good, but whatever. We'll see what happens. The other kind of interesting thing, it is definitely a, well, that's interesting, why would they do that? So the ARM, well, the NVIDIA ARM deal fell apart. And at the same time that was announced, it was also announced that SoftBank, which owns ARM, was at least considering actually doing an IPO, initial public offering, so then there'd be, you know, publicly traded stocks in it that people could get. Okay. Well, this week, apparently a rumor came out that they might, well, that SK Hynix, who I might be pronouncing it incorrectly, but that they might be forming a consortium to purchase ARM. So there's still acquisition talks involved with ARM, and it's just, I don't think many people were expecting that. And in theory, it could still happen. I mean, I don't think there's anything that would be like, no, you can't. You said you were going to do the IPO. Well, if there is some issue, I'm sure that there's also a way to get around it. At least if they were to purchase it, there shouldn't be any issue as far as the conflict of interest stuff. So it would have a better shot of it than NVIDIA.
We have a visual. Requesting backup.
There. I'm trying to remember. I haven't looked too closely at the RTX 3090 stuff that's come out, the reviews and such for it, since, you know, it's at least available. Is it available for... I don't remember the state of the availability. I also don't really care. I mean, the Halo products are interesting, personally, for me to know about, but I don't necessarily go much past that, because, like, I'm not going to buy them. Although I will, well... If my setup were different, then something like the 6900 XT would have been interesting, because $1,000, if it fits your needs, that's not bad. It's like the 1950X, the Threadripper 1950X, that was $1,000. But for what it has enabled me to do, that was completely worth it. I mean, that was a good price, too, so... Yeah. But I don't think there's anything that... You know, the 6900 XT, where are all these shots coming from? That's something like, you know, a Halo GPU product. I can't think of anything that would get me that, you know, I need. So, yeah, but anyway, it's the 3090 Ti is $2,000, and from what I saw, basically there is no reason anyone should buy this. It is what it was looking like. Where it's substantially more expensive than the 3090, and doesn't really offer anything above it that justifies that price. What's wrong? Ooh, yeah, actually, let's try doing that. That's... I don't remember the numbers, but it's like, you know, at best 15% better performance, but like 40% the price, 40% more for the price. It's like, yeah, that's... There's no justification for that.
Fire! Fire!
But then it's also, I mean, I don't know how surprising that could be to anyone, though, since even when it was announced, it was kind of a, well, yeah, I mean, it's just an NVIDIA cash grab. It's got nothing to do with actually, you know, filling out some market need. You know what? We're done with it. I don't know what happened with these planes, but they can't fly straight, so... There we go. That can fly straight. So put down... yeah. The note I just have there is that it doesn't earn its spot. Which, I mean, true. In a lot of cases, a Halo product doesn't. You know, it's like, yeah, you're spending all that money. Does it really get you anything you need? Not really. I mean, I guess, what is its VRAM buffer? That's massive. So there might be some people that, you know, works for. I'm not one of them. I would say the majority of gamers would not be among them. It's like, there's only certain uses that... You know, and a massive frame buffer applies to. And it's also, I'm sorry, but I really think we're gonna find a maximum limit for effective VRAM. I do, and I would not be surprised if technically we already have. And by that I mean, I do believe that we are getting to the point where it's like, no, you're not gonna use more than 12 gig, 16 gig for a game, for any game. That it's, and some of that is I don't think we're necessarily going to be getting to assets that take that much more. We are good at compressing things. But also, just like streaming technology has gotten so good. The GTX 770 that I have, that's 2 gig. There's not many games that actually have any stuttering there from it having to load stuff in and out. Because the streaming technology is that efficient at moving things in and out without it being a problem. Like, I think in all the games that have done performance analyses with that, one, I want to say Ghost Recon Breakpoint did actually have some problem. That, like, I think it wasn't streaming in textures to a higher quality. I think. I'd have to check that. But that might be it. Now, true, I can only test at 1920 by 1080 because that's all I have. But still, a modern game where you turn up the settings all the way, you know, rather just to the high settings, that should still be, you know, able to saturate 2 gig if this is actually a real concern. But yeah, I think that the technology of managing stuff is getting so good, already is so good, and there just come ways to make it even better that, like the sample of feedback stuff, that I think that the obsession with larger amounts of VRAM is partly just marketing. That's so you can put it on the box that, oh, I've got 12 gig, my competitor only has 8. Oh, I've got 16 gig, my competitor only has 12. And so on. Which, I mean, hey, that's fair, but at the same time, it's, you know, if you can achieve a certain minimum, which 8 seems fair, 6 is, people are finding games where that can be an issue, but it still is it really that big an issue? Kind of thing, so, so one thing's on here, I haven't pulled it up, is actually interesting, and it's, I saw Ian Cutress share it, concerning IFS, Intel Foundry Service. So, for years, AMD had its own foundries. It then spun them off, you know, so it left the company, and that's how Global Foundries was made. Was out of that. Well, Intel has also had its own foundries, so its own manufacturing processes for the manufacture of its chips. And they've not spun it off. They also, I think IFS, Intel Foundry Services, has existed for a while, but, you know, Intel is its primary customer, and they would have some possible limitations on what they would offer others. But anyway, a few weeks ago, they purchased Tower Semiconductor, which is another independent foundry. Like TSMC, Samsung, SK Hynix, I think, is actually also a foundry technically.
You have located one of our precious ancestral
Yes, I have.
skulls. Be most careful with it. There is powerful magic within.
And it seemed an odd move, because Tower is not a leading edge manufacturer. So, like, Global Foundries is still... I just know Global Foundries is one example. And I mentioned them. They are, like, making things that are on 14 nanometer and even 28 nanometer. Because the funny truth is, a lot of things don't need to go to 7 nanometer. And that going that far is kind of a waste, even. There is something there. So like the chips in cars, they don't need to be to that level. And if you don't go to that level, then you can make many of them because, you know, it's an easy, reliable process. It's also cheap. It's very cheap. And there are even larger processes than that. Oh, is that what? Wait. Oh. I was seeing this stuff flash, I think. Oh, I can grab it. Well, anyway, so it was odd that they purchased Tower, was the point there. But it, what Kutra shared, and is actually interesting, but it makes perfect sense, was Intel apparently saying that for Intel Foundry Services, it's not going to be Intel Foundry Services with Tower, in effect. It's going to be Tower with Intel Foundry Services. So it's like Tower is actually going to be leading. The reason why this is important is because that, if they are kept independent and are just like, hey, now we have access to bleeding edge because that's what Intel has been developing, that could help them get a lot of customers that might not be comfortable with, do we want Intel, designing, actually, a foundry is directly involved with design, but, do we want Intel to have access to this stuff? Well, technically they would, because it's still the same company, but if it could be kept independent by Tower managing all the foundry services, that actually could help a lot of people a lot of companies be comfortable with going to them. So it's sort of a good strategy for Intel to diversify its portfolio in that the foundry services would be making more money. It is a very curious move, but a good one, and it will be interesting to see what happens. And I know I saw somewhere somebody talking about the whole, Nvidia's in talks with Intel. It's like, well, yeah, why wouldn't they be? Intel and Nvidia are not fully direct competitors. I mean, yeah, they are for the GPU stuff, but at least for the time being, that's not going to matter. And if it could be kept separate, if the IPs could be protected, then, why wouldn't they? That would be, Nvidia would be able to go to Intel instead, or TSMC. Possibly not Samsung. Samsung's priorities with the foundries is not necessarily the leading edge of performance. So not the super high frequencies. Which, Samsung does mainly RAM and mobile. So, yeah. Now they're very good at it. And I think... Crap, I'm trying to remember. TSMC is the largest independent chip manufacturer. I don't remember what Samsung is, but it's not low on the list. I think it is actually pretty near TSMC. But I don't remember. It's been too long since I've seen that stuff talked about. I already blew up one of those. Okay, so the last thing I have here would be the Intel Arc stuff, which it's curious for multiple reasons. So, man, how long ago was it? It's not been that long. Intel announced that they would be working on discrete GPUs. Now, this was for a few reasons that it made perfect sense that they would do. And no, they weren't because they wanted to actually get involved in the consumer GPU market. Kinda that would be there, but no. That's not how you make them. You make the money in the server and selling GPUs for server. And Intel definitely wanted in on it because with big data stuff, the machine learning stuff, GPU design is so helpful there. So being able to better compete there does directly translate into, billions of dollars. Not millions. It would, I'm sure it will be on the order of billions. Perhaps not right away, but yeah. They would want in, is my point. But the thing is, you want to have a product stack that, is not just server parts. because, you know, when, you know, it's the whole, oh, we want to build, you know, a system that'll apply GPUs to process massive amounts of data, you do first think, okay, well, what do I have in my computer at home? And if it's NVIDIA, then you might be like, all right, well, then let's see if we can get an NVIDIA GPU. So it is one of those, consumer parts do matter for server parts, but server parts are, you know, they're where you're actually talking. Anyway, coming back to the actual thing. I was just trying to provide my attempt at context, which may probably fail. So, you know, whatever. These ways. I try. I might not succeed, but I do try. So ARC is the name for their GPUs, and in a reversal of what AMD and NVIDIA have done for years, but, you know, Intel's new, and there might be some technical. I saw some people speculating on that. Intel has actually announced the mobile GPUs first, the low-end mobile first, in fact, which is quite hot. But they're gonna use very familiar terminology. Arc 3, Arc 5, Arc 7, just like the i3, i5, i7. So one more thing. And the Arc 3 is going to be first. And as I said, that is kind of weird. We're used to, with AMD and NVIDIA, the high end that, you know, comes out first, and then they fill in below it. And these aren't even discrete GPUs. The desktop discrete GPUs from it. Oh, wrong button. It's the mobile. So yeah, not really sure why they're doing that. But what they're saying they have, well, it's certainly going to be better for their integrated stuff. Well, compared to their integrated GPU. But it also, it's Intel. They make CPU. So one of the things that was announced with it was Deep Link. Was that what they were calling it? It's basically stuff to connect to have the CPU and GPU, if they're both Intel, work together better. If that sounds familiar, it's because AMD also came up with that stuff. Smart Shift, I think is the name of it. Is their branding name for that? And that's things like the CPU. Well, instead of the TDPs, the power allotments for the CPU and GPU being separated, they can actually be shared. So if you're doing something that's very CPU intensive, like right now, my CPU is definitely being used heavily because I'm playing the game, but I'm also recording it on the CPU. The GPU, not so much, because this is an old and fairly easy game to render. So in a laptop with Smart Shift or this Deep Link, I don't remember what they actually call it. Right. I think I will be able to get this up there. I just need to find a different path. But it would allow, in more CPU heavy tasks, for more power to go to the CPU, less power to go to the GPU, and vice versa as well. So that's in there. There's also something, a smooth sync. Is that it? The idea being that it blends when there's screen tearing. It'll actually blend the two frames, which I don't really know how you would do that in a way that's believable. At least not driver side. It's a weird thing to.
We'll take care of this.
I can't shoot.
We got a positive. Send back up.
I can now shoot at. Hello. Goodbye.
Now you're gonna be sorry.
Let's try and think where do I want to please come down.
Need assistance! Send air
But one thing that they did announce that. Well, one thing to it all. I actually didn't see in the announcement, but I did see reporting on it. That is interesting, potentially disappointing. It kind of depends, though. Okay, let me deal with this, and then I'll get to it. It's in my notes, though, so I'm not gonna.
That'll come in handy.
There we go. So Intel announced a while ago their XeSS, Xe because that's what they're using for labeling the GPU, SS for super sampling, so it's basically Intel's version of DLSS, and it is in fact going to apply machine learning. Okay? And they had announced that it would use the XMX cores. I don't remember what that stands for, but it's basically, matrix math cores, just like tensor cores are. Although tensors and matrices are technically different, but they look similar. Tensors, though, are... I don't want to do that. Matrices you can think of as a way of storing data, but it's kind of just there. Tensors are in form similar, but they actually react. They respond to the environment. So if you make changes to the environment that they're in, they react. So if you were to store coordinates for in a matrix, for like an object in this game, in a matrix, and then you applied something that changed the game world, matrix won't reflect that change. A tensor would. Okay? So when Intel announced XeSS, one thing, they said a few things about it. One of the things that they said, though, was that it would not be limited to their own hardware, to these XMX cores. But apparently it will be limited initially. So I don't remember what it's called, D4PA, maybe? A special instruction set for linear math that basically, if a GPU supports it, it would be able to run XeSS. But if they had the XMX cores, meaning if they're an ARC GPU, they'll be able to do the work even faster. But apparently it will initially launch without that. Without that support that allows it to work on arbitrary GPUs. Well, not entirely arbitrary, but, I need a drink of water. Now that is disappointing, in more ways than one. One is, it means that it will not be possible to directly compare, at least for performance, XeSS and DLSS, because you'd have to change out the GPU. But it also is disappointing because that is something that could hurt its initial adoption, because the first impression then for the technology will be, oh, it's limited to Intel's products only, just like DLSS is limited to just NVIDIA. This is gonna endear many people, especially for an upstart. Yeah, Intel is technically an upstart when it comes to GPUs. In fact, in a lot of ways, that's exactly what they are. Since, they basically use their money as part of how they are managing any of this, and just hiring up a bunch of talent. Because, it is so unreasonable that they've managed to pull together a GPU design as rapidly as they have. And when I say unreasonable, I mean like, no, it's hard to believe that they could do it, but they are. It'll be interesting to see where performance numbers fall. And that kind of comes to the whole weirdness with it being the discrete mobile GPUs, the mobile discrete GPUs first. And one thing I saw suggesting why might be that they're having, well, not necessarily trouble with the higher end, but it's like they are still doing optimization, and that might be what's causing the issue. What causing the delays for the higher end? Because yeah, higher end they're much more complex, so getting the optimizations in place is going to be harder. Yeah, and it just. Whereas the mobile stuff, the smaller stuff, that's simpler hardware, so it's more reasonable that they would be able to get that figured out. I did forget about that. Oh, it's right there. Okay. I'm good. Kind of close to the water there. There we go. 2. I think that's actually all of them. Like, if I can just land this up here, I'll be good. It won't be easy. It really will not. Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, I'm recovered. I'm recovered. Blowing that up would not help. Okay, we're good. We're good. I almost forgot, I can talk about that too. Weird West, that review, it went live this week. Yeah, it's a little bit of a weird game for me. I did enjoy it, I did have fun, but it has got so many issues. And it was also kind of weird, because, you know, I don't really look at game reviews anymore, ever since, you know, I've been reviewing games. Even after the fact, because, like, well, I finished the game, why do I want to look at somebody else's review for the game? I know what it is. For me, and I need to know my opinion. I don't need to know somebody else's at that point. And it was interesting to see some being very positive, and it's like, I wouldn't go that far with some of it. But then also, to be fair, some of them, when talking about, you know, all the decisions involved, it's like, yeah, I only played through it once. I only had time to play through it once. So I could believe, though, that if I played through it multiple times, that the decision impacts, I'd have picked those up more and been more impressed. But there were just so many technical issues, and it's like, yeah, I can't ignore it. And I tried to make sure I wasn't ignoring them in the review. So, one example that so easily comes up is, the AI being really stupid. And I mean really stupid. so I had, on more than one occasion, encountered where the AI would just decide there needs to be somebody on this path. I'm gonna put somebody on this path. And not pay attention to the fact that I was, removing enemies from that path. So there's one, what did I call it? I think I called it, assembly line? Like an assembly line? That's what it felt like. Where the enemies just kept coming and coming. To the point that I cleared out an entire area except for one enemy. Because it kept having enemy after enemy come to that, come to the same spot that I was watching. That was wild. I had another sleep cycle. And that video's in there, it's just under the additional gameplay media. It's very similar, where they kept coming in to take a nap. And so I would, take them out. And then just, hide the body. It was just... And I said, it's like, I can't ignore that stuff. I really can't. I can laugh at it, and I certainly do. But it's just... That is a technical flaw that I'm not comfortable with looking away from, because I don't want that in a game. But it's not bad, it's just not good. I mean, it's why in the end I gave it a 2. It's like, I did have fun, I still did have fun, but it has so many technical issues. And that's just one, there are others. There's also some design issues. So the game itself is broken up across 5 journeys that take place in like one after another. Maybe there's some weeks or months between them, but for the most part it's, one after another. And you play as 5 different characters. First journey was good. I felt it was somewhat linear, but for introducing you to the world, it does a good job. I'm happy with that. And I did feel introduced to the world. Like, it sent me through places, so I encountered things, and, really helped to let me know that, oh, I can go do this, I can go do that. The second story I liked the best. Just, it had to deal with... Okay, so one aspect of how you are playing as different characters is you don't really know their past, which makes sense, because the player doesn't know the past of any character they play as, really. But what was interesting with the second one was having to face the reality of the past for this character was not a good one. And how you handle that, how you react to that. And so, that I liked. I liked that. That was much more interesting and engaging. The third story was kind of linear again. It was still a good story, but it was kind of linear. The fourth and fifth stories, though, did absolutely nothing for me, in part because they were so short. They really were. It was like, here, do this, here, do this, here, do this, hey, we're done. That's not that interesting. Sorry. And I can't, look away from that, especially because I care about story. I might care about it too much, but I do care about it. Yeah. And there were other things, technical issues. Though the story ones, though, I would say are more design issues, which I want to be a little bit clear on that. And I do recommend, just look at the review, maybe look at the review playthroughs as well, where there's greater context to it all. And I kind of forgot what I was wanting to say, or at least the exact way I was going to say it. Let's... I think I can actually land it. That might be a little bit easier. It's a tight fit. Made it, though. He's shooting. There you are. Yeah, it had to do with the... That's right. So... the design issues, as I'm calling them, for the store... Ah, I did miss it. I didn't miss it any. I haven't missed it. You know, various technical issues, yeah, those... Even the AI can probably be fixed with patches. But the story stuff that I was talking about... I don't see how that can be fixed with a patch. Like, if it were to be fixed, I think, you know, it would be too much. You have to go back to the drawing board and then also sell the game over again. I've seen that with some games, but it's not too common. For reasons that are kind of obvious. It's like, that's a huge undertaking. Might not be as big as originally making the game, but it's still very big. Let's see. Not quite. Oh. Can I... No, wait. There we go. Alright. Got it. And I know I need to come down and get... Is that the last one, or is there going to be another? Well, it would be showing. Okay. There we go. Who's talking? I'm coming. I'll take care of you, don't worry. So yeah, I mean, I did have fun, but it was definitely a weak recommendation, which is a 2 for me, because it just... Too many issues. Too many technical issues, the story design issue stuff. But still, I mean, I had fun, and that's what matters. That ultimately is what matters, is you can have fun playing the game. Because you can have a game that might be beautiful, amazing in all technical ways, but not be any fun. Why play that? You might have other games that are the buggiest crap you can think of, but might be amazingly fun. So,
But somebody's gotta do it.
although that is not very common, because generally, if it's very buggy, the bugs interfere with the fun. Although sometimes the bugs themselves are the fun. I might be weird on that, though. I do want to be wrapping up soon. Let's actually... That's a port, it looks like. So let's at least get that on the way. But yeah, I mean... Yeah. I am kind of out of things to say, aside from just, like, you know, repeating the whole point that, you know, if it's fun, it gets recommended. It's just how strong it's recommended. One thing I think would also be nice for that game is if it had a New Game Plus. At least...
Backup team on their way!
Well, the exact form it would take might be a little complicated, but yeah, I could see, because there are certain things that end up, you know, being left behind because of the 5 journeys stuff, and I do think that some of that, you know, hurt it, but then it's also, I think I, you know, did run into issues where it's like, oh yeah, if I just, you know, replay it in its final version, those will be fixed. So let me see, I think I had 3-4 missions that I could not complete. They were side quests though. Let me correct that. They were only side side quest. Oops, that's not good. But it still is. You know, that's a lot to just like. Yeah, I can't do these because, in one case, the NPC just would not take the stuff, the item he wanted back. Well, the item he wanted. He sent me to pick up a diary, and it's like, nope, I won't take it. I'm not really talking to you. Another where it's like, I have no idea who I need to talk to for this. It's like I needed to give something to somebody. I needed to break a spell, and it's like, hey, try to find somebody for that. It's like, I have no idea where. It's like, how am I supposed to do? Yeah, too bad that couldn't have actually, like, just gone, been something that would transfer over. Because technically the person you play as at the end of the game is, the person you need to take the thing to. But it wasn't her mission, it was, in Journey 1. Yeah, so I don't know exactly what the solution is there. But then I also had a mission that was, you know, again, the whole, there's no way for me to actually do it. And I think I actually had two of them. Yeah, because there was one that was gated. It's like, because there's temples, the only way to access the temple is to spend a sigil stone, which is a one-use key, but there's no reliable way to get these things. That's the problem. Like, also just generically, I don't know why they decided that that's how you'd access these things. Yeah, I think I need to just take the helicopter. Which is funny, it's actually marking green. There we go. There, and yes, I see all the things to pick up, but I want to quickly fly over here first in case there's more to destroy. I don't see any. So that's good. I can land this and get to work, picking things up. Perfect. Let's try and think if there's anything else. It has been a busy. Oh, one thing I saw that was kind of neat, and I actually put it in the news write-up. So, Hubble managed to set a new record, which there's a lot of records Hubble has set over the decades. Yeah, that thing's 32 years old, the Hubble Space Telescope. It was launched in 1990. We're actually coming up on its birthday, too. That was in April or May.
We got a positive!
I don't remember which, but yeah, it's... We are getting to that. Anyway, what it did was it took an image and... Actually... I don't remember when, but it's an older image, but it's, you know, people finally looking through the data or looking through it closely. And they spotted something in it. A object that was being gravitationally lensed. So that's gravity, you know, bends space and light. That's how black holes and such work, and other things. It's part of general relativity. But one of the predictions is that if you have a sufficiently large mass, between you and an object, a bright object, it may actually amplify the light coming through by this lensing. And, well, that was happening. And they've actually used this before to, by happenstance, you know, the alignment is right, so they can try to amplify and look at galaxies and such that you wouldn't be able to see otherwise, or not as well. Well, in this case, what they found was a, I need to heal, was a galaxy very, very, very far away, as in within 1 billion years of the Big Bang, which that is very ancient. But the thing that was really weird and set the record is just however it worked out, there was one specific star in the galaxy that was brighter, that was more amplified. It just happened to be, its alignment just happened to be right. That, you know, for the lensing, that it out of the entire galaxy, this was brighter. So they managed to get data to capture a single star that was, you know, that existed within 1 billion years of the Big Bang. I don't remember seeing anything more specific than that. Okay, I'm just gonna pick this up. I'm done. I do want to stop playing. I've got so many things I need to do today. It's been a busy day, so I've not been able to do nearly as much today as I'd like to. And I'm getting to this later than I want to, but at least once identified. But yeah, it's just one star they managed to pick out from it, just because it happened to align just right. And it was, what do they say, 50 times the mass of the sun, and far, far brighter. I don't remember how much brighter, but a lot. And now the plan is that once the James Webb Telescope is fully up and running, that it will actually look at it as well and try to get some more data on it. Like figure out its composition by looking at the light spectra that is produced. And also potentially being able to resolve if it's a binary star or not. A lot of stars are in pairs. The sun is actually kind of odd in that. Like, I think it is actually the majority of stars are in pairs. Well, actually, I should say the majority of stellar systems are pairs of stars, are binary stars, not single stars like the sun. I don't... I'm just trying to remember, but I can't quite. If the mass of all the planets for the solar system, if you were to add them up, I want to say that it is actually small enough, I mean, despite how absolutely massive Jupiter, that is still small enough that it would not have been enough for a second star. So it's like the sun, as it happens, just would not have been able to form as binary system, at least not from what we see today. There could have been a lot that got blown out, though, once the sun lit up. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. What is the actual term for it? I can't remember what it is. Might be ignition. But once so stars are typically born in stellar nurseries, they're called, which are very gaseous. So there's a lot of gas and dust surrounding the star, right? once fusion kicks in, once the star's fusion kicks in, it produces a massive wave. It's basically, the stellar wind that the star will continue to produce throughout its life. And it pushes away a lot of the dust and gas around. So I could believe then that, perhaps if the sun just ignited a little later, that it actually would then have been able to become a binary star. I believe, but I don't know. I also don't know much about the precursor to the sun. I've never been able to seen things talking about oh yeah, we figure that the sun came from the stellar nursery. Never seen anything like that, or any information, because there is some things that we should be able to figure out about the sun. Is not a first generation star for the universe. We know that because it has heavier elements, and the Earth does too. We have uranium on Earth, and the sun will basically stop fusion at carbon. To go past that, you need a much, much more massive star than the sun. So whatever dust cloud it was that formed the solar system had to have come from a much more massive star. But I don't know how much we know about that star just based on what we found here. Would that have been a first generation star? Would that actually have been a second generation? Sun is third generation? And things like that. I could believe that we could figure that out. I just don't know if anybody has, because I've never seen that written out somewhere. And it's also, let's face it, they would name that star something too. No idea what it would be, what that name would be, but they would come up with a name for it. Alright, I'm clearing up my notes on my phone. There. Next week should be, normal. Back in Just Cause 2. I don't know when, but my hope is to start working on the Dying Light 2 performance analysis. Start working on that this weekend, so I'll probably have some of it done by the time this video goes live. We'll see, though. I also need a little bit of a break. But, yeah, no idea when that'll be. That could be, 2-3 weeks before I finish with that. Writing can take a while with that stuff, and there's some other things that'll delay it, too. Then after that, I got another project I want to do. But there's always a chance of random other projects coming up, because that happens. But, yeah, I do want to do the Dying Light 2 performance analysis. It's been long enough for there to be patches and for driver updates and such. And, yeah, that is legitimately, I think it's always best with performance analyses to wait a little bit, make sure things settle down. I will admit this, though, just because I don't really want to mess with the drivers on the desktop. I probably won't update them for the RX 580, but the Vegas 64, that'll have the newest drivers, and I will put on the newest NVIDIA drivers as well. So, it'll be interesting. Especially, how's the GTX 770 going to handle it? Might not like it. But at least the 980 and above should do pretty well. Yeah, 980... that'll probably be right around 40, I think. 580 was mid 40s to into 50s. But generally I would say mid 40s right now, and I'm only going by memory. I could see the 1980 being a little bit behind it. Just Polaris was a bit more forward looking, it seems, than Maxwell was. Pascal, though, that has definitely held its own. Here, let me look. If I can't, I don't know where that's hidden anymore. The Steam hardware survey. There used to be a very easy way. Oh, yeah, that's right, it is understand. There it is. Yep. Wow, that I actually think might be lower. The GTX 1060 is 7.95% of all the video cards that Steam collected in its most recent survey. The 1650 is right behind, well, actually not right behind it, but at 5.89%, and then the 2060 at 5.46%. Yeah, Pascal with the 1060, that has proven to be a very, very capable GPU. I do hope, though, that nearly 8% is the 6 gig. The 3 gig was not so good. In part, yeah, that's one thing. I still don't know why NVIDIA did that, but it was a terrible thing to do because it's so confusing. The 3 gig, the die, the chip, was actually different for the 3 gig version than 6. Like, it had a different number of compute units on there, although I don't remember what NVIDIA calls those, but the compute units, execution units, CUDA cores, that might have been it, but I don't remember if CUDA cores is what they also use for calling the graphics cores. Those are definitely the compute cores. Wow, the RTX 3060 is at 2.4%. That's been increasing, but so did the 1060. Yeah, it's yeah, I did not realize though. I thought that the 1060 was high. Yeah, actually, I'm kind of curious. Where is the 980? Do you think, or any 900 series? Okay, the 960 is at 1.05%. The 970 at 1.02%. I'm not immediately seeing the 980. Yeah. All right, I do need to be stopping. It can be interesting to look though at the different Steam store stats, and yes, some of the stuff you can't really trust because multiple users on the same GPU can be counted. Internet cafes, things like that. It can be a bit skewed, but it is interesting. All right, yeah. See you next time.